A lot of people have requested that I make a tour of my electronics workshop. Now, I call this a workshop, not a laboratory. A laboratory is for research and development, and that barely ever happens in this place. It's mostly just repairs. Now, I wanted to make a tour of this workshop, but before I wanted to get everything organized and cleaned up, nice and presentable, and that never happened. Well, now I don't really have a choice. I have to do the tour today because starting today I'll be taking more and more things out of here because I will be moving this workshop to a different building. It'll be smaller, but it'll be a lot more convenient for me. So there is absolutely nothing to be sad about. While this room looks okay, the building that it's located in is an absolute disaster zone, and most likely it'll be torn down within the next year or so. So let's begin. We'll be taking a look around, and then as the final part we'll be looking at the workbench. So starting here, this is a shelf where I keep computer parts. There is a box of all the cables that I use for projects, and up there is one of those messy corners that I would have liked to clean up before making this video. Oh well. Now there is a shelf for large components, modules, and projects in these boxes, shoe boxes. There is the section where I keep all my chemicals. So there are cleaners, contact cleaners, grease, oil, acetone, all this nice stuff. And down there are more parts. In front sits a tool chest. Well, that's a rather pathetic tool chest. And a box of cables, test leads, that sort of thing. Moving on, we have this shelf. This contains small components, electronic components. This is kind of a work in progress thing. It's not finished. I always wanted to get another one of these really big component cabinets. Put that right there for capacitors, because this component cabinet is all for resistors. I don't have a similar thing for capacitors. It's all a bit of a mess with those at the moment. There are some heat sinks sitting on the floor. There are some empty cases that I want to use for projects, and some more empty cases up there. Let's now move on to this big shelf along this wall. Now, I won't really go into any great detail about the equipment, just to try and keep this video short. But up there, because it's not immediately obvious, these are two identical Sony Trinitron televisions that I want to use as video monitors. Another empty case for a project, and then in here are medium-sized components and modules and parts. And I have these in these margarine containers, and these are really great for storage of components. These boxes, they're reasonably solid, they don't wear out, so once you've emptied one of these containers, you wash it really well with a lot of soap to get all the grease out. That's important. You can wipe off the paint with some acetone, then you can put on your own labeling. And these are really good. And there are some of these margarine containers, they've been around for 10 years. They are still perfectly fine. So that's a little tip for all of you, some free storage containers that you can have if you like margarine. Of course, there are people who will only put butter on their bread. Down in here, this looks kind of interesting. These are LEDs, LED backlight strips out of televisions. And then in these drawers are circuit boards and projects and, you know, things that in here are heat sinks with components attached to them. That's an interesting description. And yeah, more circuit boards and projects. Right there are CDs and audio cassettes and video cassettes, and there is also some mini DV cassettes. These are for testing equipment. And then down there is a shelf with unfinished projects, and I don't know if I ever will finish them, to be honest. Moving on, down there are speakers. Lots and lots of speakers. Let's try to get a good look at the speakers. There they are. And then right here is test equipment, mostly test equipment. Most of it is working, some of it doesn't work, obviously. And then right here, these are some old projects. There are, let's see, that is a detector radio that I made back in 2003. That's a slightly more recent detector radio. I made that in around 2004, 2005, I think. This is a little amplifier. This was a school project that I built in 2011. And then there is a tiny little amplifier. I don't even know when I built that, but it's been around for a long time. And up there, this is a folder of data sheets, and I don't actually use data sheets and service manuals on paper anymore. I got a tablet, and it's so much more practical to have data sheets and service manuals and schematics as a PDF file on the tablet, because you can zoom in, you can scale things to exactly the right size, and you know, if you have a bad scan, low quality, low resolution, it really helps to try and increase or sometimes even decrease the size of how something is displayed to make it more readable. So the tablet is much better than paper, so this folder is actually going to go away. But next to that are records that I use for testing. There is a soldering iron up there, more speakers, some boxes. That's a portable television in that box, an Onkyo TX2000 receiver with a bunch of papers on top. This is an interesting piece of equipment. This is an HP total harmonic distortion analyzer. Get a bunch of settings, and then it shows you the value on this nice analog meter. So far I used this only once just to see if it works, and it does work. And I should be using this a lot more often when I'm working on amplifiers. Down there, miscellaneous components. That's some camera parts. There are some old chargers in there. And then down there we have, this is an isolating variac. It's a 2-in-1. It's an isolation transformer and a variac. It's a really nice piece of equipment, and I should be using this a lot more often. It certainly is more versatile than just this isolation transformer, which you've all seen in the background of the workbench. Now next to that, this is an UHER reel-to-reel. There is a half-broken oscilloscope and a half-broken reel-to-reel. Once again, miscellaneous parts, the LePi amplifier, 2 identical transformers. This is a nice big motor out of a bread maker. And then this is a very interesting and certainly a very special item. This is my bachelor's thesis that I wrote in 2016. This is you could almost say a discrete Class D switch mode amplifier. Now, it does contain some ICs on here, as you can clearly see, but those are not specific Class D amplifier ICs. These are operational amplifiers and comparators and H-bridge drivers, so it's universal ICs. So this is actually really a great way of explaining how a Class D amplifier works. And I'll have to make a video about this at some point, but it'll have to be a very good video. So that'll take some time. Now this right here is an unfinished prototype, or well, this is actually the final thing, but this is I made 2 of these amplifiers. This one was supposed to be for myself, and then the other one, which is in this box, was supposed to stay with the university. Well, it was with the university for about a year, and then they contacted me and said I can have it. So I never really had any reason to finish building this. Well, if I did, I could have a stereo amplifier. Yeah, but that was the great project of 2016. There are some cassette recorders. This is an interesting one. This is a 3-head mono cassette recorder made by Superscope. Old Sony Discman, and then down below an old Philips cassette recorder. This is the Sony cassette deck. Let's see, there it is. This is for cables. These are just audio cables. We'll be seeing a lot more cables in a few moments. Speakers. These are some parts and components and project boxes that I got at a flea market for really cheap. I haven't really gone through this stuff yet, but those were some nice finds. That's an empty box for a cassette deck. There are more cables. These are all kinds of cables. See, we got speaker cables, various cables, DIN cables, antenna cables, so on and so forth. There is video cables. Down here, various items, as you can see. And yeah, that is the empty case of that piece of junk Sanyo amplifier. There is a mini cassette recorder. Mini cassette. That is a micro cassette, and that belongs to the micro cassette deck down below. That doesn't work. There is a half-broken reel-to-reel and a counter and a lamp. In the box there is a broken Yamaha amplifier. There are some speakers that I picked up in a thrift store. They looked a lot better in the store, but once I had them out I noticed these are very much full of nicotine. These are kind of nasty. Got a box of XLR plugs. Got those off eBay. Much cheaper than getting them in a store. There is another Uher reel-to-reel, which you can't really see. A lot of reflection on that. And here are the Sony speakers with built-in amplifier, and yes, there is that buzzing transformer. I found a suitable replacement, nice toroidal transformer, but that'll have to go into a separate case. So that's still work in progress. Now in this shelf are various pieces of equipment, as you can see. And this is the Tandberg cassette deck. And this is something I actually... these are some of the most common screws found on Japanese hi-fi equipment. So I got those in a special place, so I can easily access them and find a screw if I need one. Here is a broken Tektronix waveform monitor. There is this amplifier that I modified a while ago. Moving on, now there used to be a table in this corner of the room that's already gone. Has already been moved, so this is a bit of a mess. We have some boom boxes right there. Power supply, monitor. There is a nice little Sony portable monitor. It's not a TV, it doesn't have a tuner. Trinitron. There are more cables. These are various power cables, and down below are boxes of transformers. These are solid wooden boxes and they are very heavy. Lots and lots of transformers, and then in this box are wall wart power supplies. This is actually overflowing. Then moving on to this shelf, we have, well, this is a box with test leads, which has somehow ended up around here. So, got oscilloscope probes, lots and lots of them. There is a dual record player underneath. These are some car speakers that I got for my car. Haven't had the time to install them yet. That's another work in progress project. I made that circuit board a long time ago. Eventually it'll be a signal tracer. Yeah, there is the Hitachi record player, which I use for testing. Sharp receiver. There are some more transformers right there. Cyrus stereo system, Kenwood cassette deck. And this corner, yeah, this is a bit of a mess now, but I actually had this corner set up to take detailed tours of hi-fi equipment. So this top shelf was all empty, so I could place a component there and a camera in front. And then I had this Pioneer receiver right there, so any piece of equipment could be connected to that. Use the amplifier, and then audio came through these Bang & Olufsen speakers. But yeah, that was used for one video and it didn't go 100% perfect, so yeah. Once everything has been moved, I'll have to improve this corner a little bit. There is a World receiver made by Grundig, supposedly the best one they ever made. I found this at the side of the road. Somebody had just thrown it out. So that was a great find. There are some more projects, and this is a preamplifier based on an Elector article from the 90s. Found that at the dump. And that is that shelf. So now we move on to the exciting part, the workbenches. And let me tell you straight away, having two workbenches is a stupid idea. Now, for a long time I had this separated in such a way that all the soldering equipment was over on this bench. So there was the soldering iron and the desoldering gun, and well, there is still the hot air gun, but that's all that remains. Bad idea, very bad idea, because so often you have to do both at the same time. You have to measure things, and of course all the test equipment is over here. You then want to solder something straight after that. So initially I moved the equipment back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. That was stupid. So eventually I just started using the soldering equipment over here again, but still had the base station sitting there. Thankfully the cables are nice and long. But yeah, I recently moved everything back to this workbench. Not just because I wanted to have everything reunited over here anyways, but also because I want to move this table. This is one of these third-hand things that you can get. And here is some advice. Mount it on a piece of wood. That gives it some stability and it doesn't keep falling over all the time. I actually have two of those third hands. There is the other one. So that pretty much covers this workbench. Oh, there are two boxes full of junked circuit boards, and those contain replacement parts. Every once in a while I'll pick some parts off of those boards. And then there is this workbench over here. So as we go through, should have turned all this equipment on. Would have looked nice. Actually, no, some of the stuff has cooling ventilators. That would have been annoying. Anyway, so all the multimeters are up there. And then this is a 4-channel digitizing oscilloscope made by Gold. The special part about this is down there. This has 4 differential inputs. So you don't have this limitation where the ground of the scope is actually connected to ground. Differential inputs don't have that issue. Next to that, now this thing, it's been acting up recently. There may be some bad capacitors, I think. Here is everybody's favorite, the Rigel DS1054Z oscilloscope, 4-channel digitizing scope. Took me a long time to finally get this. I was using this old HP unit for a long time, but never really liked that, and this one is much better. And then up there is this nasty, dirty signal generator and frequency counter and power supply thing, which I needed when I found out that the square wave that this thing does is absolute rubbish. That's the mini DDS function generator. Here is a bench multimeter. Now don't be tricked by it saying BK precision. This meter was actually built by GW Instec, and there was also a version available that was badged as Agilent, which is of course HP originally. So if HP put their name onto this, it can't be bad. And then there is the Onkyo CD player that I use as a source for music when I'm working on equipment. And then down here there is the desoldering station, there is the gun, soldering iron, soldering station. Of course it's a Weller, and it's well worth the money, let me tell you that. This thing is wonderful. There is some nice lead-based solder. This used to be a 1 kilogram spool. I think there is about half of it left. So that is going to last me for quite a long time, I hope. Now here are speakers, these gray speakers, these L-Tex speakers. Really cheap, rubbishy speakers from the flea market. I use those for testing amplifiers, and then the white speakers, which are actually the nicer speakers. These are, let's see, what are these? WHD. These are connected to this little amplifier, and this is also for testing audio equipment, and this is of course a amplifier that I made myself. And then we have some power supplies right there. And is there anything else? Yeah, there are some more multimeters and a mess. And then over here, this is a tool chest, basically, the main tool chest. So got some stuff up on top, but then got screwdrivers and that and this and yeah, all kinds of stuff. And it's really handy to have everything in reach. So this, when I'm sitting here on this chair, I got all the tools right next to me. And then this plasticky cheap tool chest over here only contains some more screwdrivers, as you can see. And I think that's it. Oh, actually no. Right there is a lamp, obviously, and then right here, this is something that I fabricated a while ago. This was such a great idea. This is the overhead mount that I use for the phone. The phone goes into here, and then you can adjust it really freely to look straight down or look ahead, or, you know, sort of have it low or high, or, you know, it's a really great idea. And I think this has improved my videos a lot. I actually repurposed a microphone mount for this. So this right here, this is actually a threaded part. Normally a microphone mount would screw onto that, but I made this wooden block to adapt it to this construction. But that should be it. So we've made it within 30 minutes, actually. So, thank you for watching.